Fitness My Way.
My name's Michelle Pinio. I'm a personal and group fitness trainer, as well as a sport nutrition specialist. I'm also the owner of the Fitness My Way application and creator of the Fat Shred Revolution Intense Training Program. We're going to talk about strength training and whether or not your muscles are balanced. We're going to cover what muscle balance means, why it's important that your muscles are balanced from strength training, how to figure out if your muscles are balanced, and then if they're not, how you can balance them out. You might be asking yourself, what exactly does muscle balance mean anyway? Well, muscle balance can actually mean quite a few different things, but today I'm just going to address the anterior and posterior, or the front and back sides of your body. So you have an agonist muscle. That's the muscle that's actually producing some kind of force. And then you have an antagonist muscle, which actually slows down that force. Now these muscles are always opposite of each other. So for example, it's like the quadricep on the front of your thigh, and then you have a hamstring on the back. Or like your pec muscles, obviously your chest on the front, and then what's opposite to that would be either like your lats and your traps in the back. Even the smaller muscles too, like the biceps are in the front and then your triceps are in the back, okay? So I'll paint you a picture. So let's take a baseball pitcher, for example. When he actually throws the ball, right? It's actually the front deltoid, which is the front of your shoulder, your pec muscles, so your chest, a little bit of bicep, and a tiny little rotator cuff muscle in the back that's actually throwing that ball forward. Then the muscles in your back, right, like the posterior deltoid, your traps, and the other rotator cuff muscles is actually what's decelerating the arm, right, to actually stop the forward motion. So you might be asking yourself why this even matters. Well, if the decelerating muscles, right, in the back in this example, or the antagonist muscles, are not equal in force to the agonist muscles, then your joints, your surrounding tissue, and actually your muscles are at serious risk for injury. If that same pitcher's decelerating muscles in the back couldn't manage their requirements, then he could actually strain his back, like his low back, because some kind of muscle obviously has to slow this process down if the correct ones aren't doing their job. So if you want to figure out if your muscles are actually balanced, you can figure this out from strength training with weights. So we'll start down at your ankle, okay? The ratio is actually 3-to-1, which means your calves should be 3 times stronger than your tibialis anterior, which is actually the muscle in the very, very front, like on top of your shin pretty much. So basically, if you can do calf raises of, let's say, 100 pounds, then that tibialis anterior should be able to lift about 33 pounds. If it can't, then they're unbalanced. The next joint up is your knee. The ratio should be 2-to-3. Your hamstrings on the back are 2, and the quads in the front are 3. Then we have your hips. The ratio on that one is actually 1-to-1. Your glutes, right, your butt pretty much, should be as strong as your hip flexors. Then your trunk, that's also 1-to-1, okay? This is a big one for most of us. You need to work your lower back just as much as you work your abs. Then you have your shoulder. The ratio is 2-to-3. The main extensors are your lats, which are the big ones in the back, the teres minor, which is the tiny one, your post delt, which is the back of your shoulder, and your triceps. Those muscles, they should be able to pull more force than the main flexors, which is the ones we said before, the anterior deltoid, your pecs, and your biceps. That's another big one, especially for guys, okay? You need to work your back just as much as you work your chest. It's not always all about just the big, like, mirror muscles, okay? And then you turn around and it's like just... Last is your elbow. The ratio is 1-to-1. It's your biceps and your triceps. So that's another big one. I see lots of people always doing like bicep curls, but not working triceps so much, right? Test it out. Actually see if you can lift the same amount with your biceps, and then you could pull the same amount with your triceps. Most of your joints do a lot more than just flexion and extension. Like for instance, your shoulder and your hip, you know, they can move this way. They can, obviously your flexion is forward. They can move around like this way. But just for demonstration purposes, today we were just talking about flexion and extension because that's a good place to start if you really want to test to see if your muscles are balanced. So if you do put your muscles to the test and then you find out that they are unbalanced, and if you haven't had some kind of injury, some of the causes may be because you are like favoring specific muscles. You're doing repeated movements throughout the day. A good example would be like if you carry your bag or your purse always on one side, or maybe you got a kid that you're always carrying with the same arm, then that will definitely cause a muscle imbalance. You can even get really tight muscles like in your hamstrings and your hip flexors just from sitting down all day. Like a lot of us have these office jobs and you're stuck at a desk all day. That'll definitely cause a lot of tight muscles, and even postural issues, which can cause pain and even injury, but that's for a different conversation. If you want to learn a little bit more about that, look for one of my videos that's titled Posture and Pain, and then I explain actually all of that there. Anyway, maybe you ignore certain muscles when you're doing your workout. A lot of people do, and then they don't even realize that they're doing that. Like muscle isolation, for example. Like doing just the bicep curls like I was talking about, or a big one, especially for women, is that quadricep extension machine, the one where you sit down and then you kick your feet up forward, right? And you feel like that burn like right on the front of your thigh. Well, a lot of people are doing that. That's muscle isolation. Or like I said before, just not working your lower back and your obliques, which are on the sides, just as much as you're working your abs. So if you want to fix these imbalances, if you discover that you have any, that is, figure out which ones that they are when you're doing your strength training. Then in the future, actually ignore those muscles. Like when you're working out, just the ones that are overactive, don't like isolate those whatsoever anymore, because that's obviously what got you in this problem in the first place, probably. But just really pay extra attention to the ones that are underactive. And then every couple of weeks, you can just test it back out with the ratios that I gave you and see if it's actually caught up with each other yet. So now that you know how important it is to actually have balance in your strength training program, share this videos with others so they'll know too. See you next time.